Deep below the waves, U.S. Navy submarines glide through total darkness, running silent on nuclear power, while crews listen to a world that no one else can hear. Engines, whales, earthquakes, underwater volcanoes. Every sound out there gets turned into a picture in a sonar operator's mind. But every so often, those headphones pick up something that doesn't fit any manual, any training, any known machine or animal. And that is where the silence begins. The Navy rarely talks about those moments, and when they do, the details vanish behind black R's and the word classified. Stay through this entire video, because at the end, you'll hear about the moment the Navy knew a doomed sub had imploded in the deep before the rest of the world had even started searching, and why they still refused to release what their secret underwater ears had heard. To understand why the Navy keeps quiet, you first have to understand just how good it is at listening. Unlike warships on the surface, submarines don't depend on radar. Radio waves die quickly underwater. Instead, they rely on sound, which travels 4 to 5 times faster in the ocean than in air, and can bend along layers of temperature and pressure to reach astonishing distances. Modern submarines tow long arrays of hydrophones, underwater microphones, behind them using passive acoustics to pick up the tiny signatures of propellers, pumps, and engines from miles away. Each class of submarine has its own unique acoustic sound print, like a fingerprint, that trained sonar operators can recognize. During the Cold War, the US laid down vast fixed hydrophone arrays on the seafloor known as SOSUS, the Sound Surveillance System, anchored along continental shelves in the Atlantic and Pacific to build a kind of undersea early warning fence for Soviet submarines. This network evolved into what is now called the Integrated Undersea Surveillance System, which still uses highly sensitive sensors, cables, and signal processing to hear anything from very quiet modern subs to distant explosions, all of it fused in shore-based centers. Even expendable sonobuoys dropped from aircraft, DIFAR and die-cast buoys, can drift and listen for hours, detecting acoustic energy across a wide frequency band and even actively pinging to find a target. On paper, some of this is unclassified. The Navy admits the network exists, but the exact performance, processing tricks, and what they actually pick up on a day-to-day basis, that's the kind of information militaries guard more tightly than nuclear launch codes. And that secrecy is exactly why, when truly strange noises show up, almost no one outside the vault ever hears about them. In the 1990s, a strange twist happened. Parts of the old Cold War listening network were handed over to civilian science, letting researchers at NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, plug their own recorders into what used to be top-secret gear. Almost immediately, weirdness started pouring in. Analysts began cataloging unexplained sounds from the deep. Upsweep, a long, repeating pattern of rising tones that's been echoing through the Pacific since at least 1991. The Bloop, a 1-minute ultra-low frequency roar in 1997, so loud it was heard more than 5,000 kilometers away. Julia, slow down, train, and whistle, each with its own signature and no obvious source. Many of these were cross-checked with the Navy to rule out submarines, weapons tests, or known man-made events, and the answer came back: not us. Over time, scientists linked some of them to natural phenomena. The Bloop, once hyped as evidence of a monster larger than a blue whale, now closely matches the acoustic profile of ice quakes, as Antarctic ice shelves crack and collapse. Julia and Slowdown also appear to be massive interactions between ice and seafloor or water columns. Upsweep, however, has persisted for over 3 decades, waxing and waning with the seasons, and seeming to originate from a remote region of the Pacific that has known volcanic activity, but no single obvious culprit. Whistle, recorded on a single hydrophone in 1997, sounds more like a kettle boiling than a whale song, and may be linked to undersea eruptions, but with only one sensor picking it up, its true nature is still guesswork. These are just the anomalies NOAA is allowed to talk about. The same networks, and the Navy's far more capable classified successors, are hearing the entire ocean all the time. If a handful of unexplained signals make it into public science, imagine how many odd signatures remain buried in logs that never leave military servers. Above the ocean, UFOs have rebranded as UAPs, Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena, and US Navy pilots have gone on the record describing objects with no visible means of propulsion, performing maneuvers that defy known aerodynamics. Below the waves, there is a less famous but equally disturbing category: USOs, Unidentified Submerged Objects. The term covers any underwater contact, seen by eye or picked up on sonar, that doesn't match known vessels, animals, or geologic events. Historical and modern reports describe fast-moving targets that change depth and direction with impossible precision, some even transitioning between sea and air without leaving a visible splash, a so-called transmedium capability. In 1963, during exercises off Puerto Rico, one U.S. Navy submarine reportedly broke from formation to chase an underwater contact moving at speeds over 150 knots, nearly 4 times faster than any submarine of the era, while also diving to depths around 27,000 feet, well beyond the safe operating envelope of U.S. or Soviet boats at the time. The sub's sonar tracked the object on and off for days, but nothing was ever officially identified, and details remain secondhand and heavily debated. More recently, in 2004, the famous Tic Tac incident off the USS Nimitz carrier group included reports of a disturbance churning the ocean surface, as if something massive lurked just below, moments before an oblong white object shot away at incredible speed. In 2019, crew aboard the USS Omaha near San Diego recorded video and radar tracks of spherical objects swarm the ship. One radar contact appeared to drop into the ocean and vanish, prompting crews to prepare a helicopter launch that was later called off. Journalists who've spoken with submariners report that strange contacts do occasionally appear on sonar, targets that seem to move faster than torpedoes, or at depths that crush steel. But they are rare, data is often noisy, and the Navy has no formal way to tag them as unknown for follow-up. Instead, operators are trained to focus on threats they can classify: Russian, Chinese, Allied, civilian. Everything else gets mentally dumped into categories like environmental or transient, even when it doesn't quite fit. At the same time, internal programs exist to log and analyze USO incidents, with some former intelligence officers claiming that the data goes into a vault and never sees daylight. Whether you lean toward exotic technology, sensor glitches, or misinterpreted biology, one thing is clear: the Navy's underwater ears are sometimes hearing things that shouldn't be there, and their default response is not to talk about it. So why the silence? Officially, it comes down to sources and methods. Undersea acoustic networks are foundational to modern naval warfare. They're how the US tracks adversary submarines across oceans, protects carrier groups, and safeguards undersea cables and infrastructure. Revealing exactly what they can hear, at what range, and how quickly they can pinpoint a sound would hand potential enemies a playbook for slipping past detection. That's why the modern integrated undersea surveillance system operates in the background, acknowledged in broad strokes, but almost never discussed in detail. The most striking recent example of this played out in 2023, when the private submersible Titan went missing during a dive to the Titanic wreck. Publicly, the world watched an international search effort race against the clock, hoping to find survivors before oxygen ran out. But behind the scenes, the US Navy had already run acoustic data from its classified networks and detected an anomaly consistent with an implosion or explosion in the area where Titan lost contact, essentially confirming the sub had been destroyed soon after it disappeared. A defense official later told reporters that this analysis was shared quietly with search coordinators, but withheld from the public to avoid compromising how and where the Navy listens underwater. In other words, the Navy's hidden ears heard the fatal event almost in real time, but the recordings and technical details went straight into a secure vault. The same logic applies to mysterious explosions, secret missile tests, foreign sub-accidents, and any deeply weird sounds or USO tracks that turn up on classified systems. Admitting publicly that you heard something is also admitting that you could hear the vessel that made it. And in the opaque chess game of undersea warfare, that admission is a move most admirals are unwilling to make. So the Navy keeps officially quiet, even as its operators sit in dark rooms, headphones on, listening to an ocean we barely understand. Some of what they hear is routine, some are terrifying, some have no label at all. And once in a while, as with the Titan implosion, they know the ending of the story long before the rest of the world is even aware the story has begun. Thanks for joining us on this journey into the depths of what submariners are really hearing beneath the waves. If you found this story fascinating, like, subscribe, and ring the bell for more deep dives into the unsolved, the unexplained, and the unbelievable. Tell us in the comments, what do you think they're really listening to out there? And which ocean mystery do you wish the Navy would finally reveal? Stay curious, the next sound could change everything.